more exclusive Naruto Lemon videos coming out on my Boosty. You can support me by subscribing. Link in description. Description: the war ended, but it never brought any consolation. Naruto received fame, honor, and respect. But hardly anyone can call his life complete. An old acquaintance gives the hero a chance in another world. Part 1, Prologue. How much time has passed since the war? 1, 2, 5 years? Sometimes these events completely disappeared from memory. Life seemed to stop there, in the heat of battle. War. It changed everyone who saw that massacre with Shinju, Obito, Madara, Kagaya, and Akatsuki as a whole. And yet we were able to gain the upper hand then. Such thoughts tormented me every day. I became the hero of the shinobi world, the savior. When my status was mentioned, I involuntarily snorted. I was disgusted. I can't live normally anymore. My life remained there, on the battlefield. And again I deceived myself. Those who I truly loved remained on the battlefield, friends, a couple of shinobi from among our sensei, a girl who loved me blindly, selflessly. All my life I walked towards this long-awaited world. I wanted to become Kage. I wanted honor, recognition. I wanted to find a family. And what did I get? I gave up my post as Kage of the village, and the second savior, Sasuke, was put there. Uchiha, who began to accumulate the fighting power of the village and revive his clan through a harem, one of whose concubines was Sakura, and then Karen. My first love, Sakura, still comes to me in tears, sometimes in the middle of the night, and starts complaining about how Sasuke turned out to be so terrible. Well, yes, it didn't pass, and how long did it pass? Everyone experienced these years in their own way. Of my teachers, only Kakashi survived, and you can hardly call him a cheerful person. The fight with Obito greatly weakened him, but he continued to teach the younger generation. Tsunade retired and became an advisor until she died in her sleep. I was glad that she didn't suffer, just quietly left. Now she's together with Nawaki, Dan, and Jiraiya. Those who survived that massacre, and there are only a few of them, Rock Lee, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Tenten Takahashi, Ino Yamanaka, that's all. They started starting families. Tenzo PG, Mitarashi Anko soon died, as Orochimaru's resurrection removed most of her vitality. Might Guy died after the 8th gate opened. Gaara did not survive either. My acquaintances could be counted on the fingers of one hand. I took out the last SG. Became like Kakashi in his youth, and youth the place where you could find me, the cemetery. There I stood hopelessly in front of the grave of my parents, Hinata, Tsunade, or Jiraiya, or the abandoned training ground number 44 Forest of Death, where I trained. The rest of my time was spent on missions. The long-smoked SG lay next to me. I had already been sitting at her grave for more than 3 hours. The survivors tried to move on with their lives. They started families, began to participate in the life of the village, became sensei, some joined the ANBU. I just exist, you can't call it life. I just gave up. I'm tired of fighting for an impossible dream after what I saw. There can be no peace. A person exists as long as he can rip out his neighbor's throat. People love wars, it's their nature. They like to glorify the massacre and write poems about it. 2 years later, local clashes began. Another year later, the war between IWA and Kumo in the territory of Taki no Kuni, Waterfall Country. My investigation regarding the Uzumaki clan again undermined my faith, but now in the people around me. It's unpleasant to realize that I am a shinobi of a village that participated in the destruction of my clan. There was no point in starting a family, I simply couldn't. Fear, irresistible, animalistic, panicky fear enveloped me. I was afraid to put my family in danger, afraid to lose them. And the memory of Hinata haunted me. Every night in my nightmares I see that war. I'm proud of myself. I don't even wake up in a cold sweat, I'm so used to it. I see how people died. I remember the smell of war, charred bodies, the acrid smell of fresh blood. I remember Ino being hysterical over the bodies of Shikamaru and Choji. I remember how Lee carried Niji's body and laid him in the grave himself. I remember Hayashi's face Hyuga, when he brought the empty Hinata, my beloved Hinata, to her father. Enough, Naruto. Stop it, it's making you sick. Kurama whined in my subconscious. You're right, Kurama, I can't return them. Even with your father's power, I cannot bring them back. Let's go home. The fox came out of the cage and formed next to me. He nodded and we walked towards my shinobi dorm apartment. You do not understand. These people you call friends. Ten Tails. Naruto. We can handle it. Together. My friends are in my heart, and you can't take that away. I feel their pain. No! Enough! No! 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 Hinata, my daughter! Hinata! Ah, oh! I jumped up. That dream again. Putting my hand to my forehead, I felt cold. Cold sweat. Wow, this hasn't happened for a long time. This time it looked very colorful. Sometimes I'm amazed that you haven't gone crazy. And this despite the fact that I protected your brain from this area of /U200B/U200 memory during sleep. A sleepy voice was heard from the corner of the room. Forget it, Kurama. I already get used to it. It's just a dream, I said on the way to the kitchen. Dream? Well, it's not a nightmare. I'm just used to it now. Will you have meat? The nine-tailed fox crawled out of his sleeping basket and ran into the kitchen, licking his lips and smacking his mouth. I just grinned. After training, I again sat in the cemetery in front of Hinata's grave. Power of Rikudo, all Bijou, Senin Moto, Rinnegan, Kekkei Genkai from the Bijou, my father's techniques, all this remained with me after the victory. I didn't want to lose my grip, so I often hung out at the training ground or in the library. I had to make up for lost time at the academy, because people started whispering about my narrow-mindedness. When I first joined ANBU, I had to refresh my brain with knowledge so as not to embarrass myself. Kurama, can you feel it? I asked out loud, although it was not necessary, when I felt a fleeting surge that I had not felt since the massacre. Yes, father. I plunged into the subconscious. Chapter 1, that's it. I went down to the fox, who was lying peacefully in the clearing in his subconscious and quietly talking about something with Otsutsuki Hagoromo, known as Rikudo Senin. The old man levitated slightly in the air, and below him were 9 Gudadam. Hello, Naruto. Rikudo smiled welcomingly. Rikudo-sama, Kurama. I nodded easily. And in the past, you called me old man. The sage smiled again. Well, everything changes. You. Naruto, how are you? Fine. True, I lost track of time. I said carefree. 10 years have passed since the end of the war, Naruto. The sage drawled. That's how it is. So I am now. I involuntarily thought. 26 years old. I came to see you precisely about this. I know it took a long time, it just happened that way. I was allowed to give you a gift for helping to defeat Shinju. Will you send me to Shinigami? I said hopefully. I didn't lie, I already unimaginably wanted peace. Rikudo looked at me like a ram at a new gate. He looked blankly, first at me, then at Kurama, and just blinked his eyes. Let me explain better. Kurama reached out with the tip of his tail to the sage's forehead and transmitted my memories for 10 seconds. And when the process ended, Rikudo shuddered. How, everything is sad, it turned out, he drawled wearily. I can imagine. 10 years of self-flagellation and loneliness that was so common for me, it was as if I had returned to childhood. Oh, nostalgia! The sage was deep in thought, while I sat down on one of the tails. I think the gift that I brought will not be useful to a person like you, Rikudo said sadly. Naruto, can I help you with something? Either send me to my father, mother, and Hinata, or do something with this life. If not, then I'll go. Strength doesn't interest me, I'm already a hero, here, it's already infuriating. So it's also the responsibility of those to whom I owe the fact that there are no red-haired people left to hump. The old man thought again, and then smiled slyly. Maybe you want to fix everything? And how should I understand you, Rikudo? I remember very well that Rikudo is a worse magician than Madara. Scare me, old man. Rikudo broke into a satisfied smile from such treatment. I can send you to a parallel world. How far? I perked up a little. This gift suits me. Well, for example, when you were just assigned to teams, N.O. I barked. If I see any of them alive, I'll definitely go crazy. This will already cross all borders. Old man, it's better not to give me anything at all. I will live out my life and die in peace. I was again able to put the old man in the position. Eyes, where are my eyes? Hey, old man. Can you send me back to the time when Uzushiogakure existed? I want to see my clan. Rikudo smiled contentedly. But not in this world. In one of the parallel mogas, the process of forming Kakurazato, hidden villages, is just beginning. However, I think you understand that in this case you will lose the powers of the tailed ones, you will not have parts of other Bijou, as well as the Rinnegan that I helped awaken. You will still have some of my abilities, but not related to dojutsu. The level of your own chakra will be maintained. I can also pass on your own techniques, well, except perhaps for the call. We'll have to make a new one. Rikudo smiled. What if I'm against it? Kurama climbed in, absolutely dissatisfied with this situation. Maybe I want to stay with the boy. So attached to me, redhead? I smiled. Get ready, you will come with us. Don't worry, I'll get you there too. We will also break a couple of stereotypes with you and spoil the nerves of those around us. The fox bared his teeth rather pleased. Old man, what will happen to this body? Well, I think you will have a decent funeral. And no one will know that your soul is no longer in it. That's great, I said quietly. Today was a sad day in Konoha. Uzumaki Naruto, true shinobi of the Will of Fire, hero of the 4th Shinobi World War, captain of the most unhinged ANBU group, as well as a loyal friend and reliable protector, was found at Hinata's grave. Hyuga, Shizen, and Sakura personally examined the body, and both gave the same conclusion. Cardiac arrest. Hayashi asked the Hokage that the body be laid to rest next to his daughter, and that both graves be fenced off separately from the rest. The request was granted, because everyone knew that Naruto visited her grave very often. All village residents gathered at the funeral, and a week of mourning was declared. After the ceremony, only a small group remained at the grave: Rock Lee, Kakashi Hatake, and Naruto's ANBU group of 4 fighters, one of whom was the wolf, Konohamaru Sarutobi. May you rest in peace, my friend, for you have lived a hard life, Lee said and disappeared. Today he will get drunk, but he won't play tricks anymore. You can finally rest, Naruto. They are all proud of you. Kakashi squatted down and placed Jiraiya's book, Tales of the Unyielding Ninja, on the tombstone, and then turned to the 4 ANBU who stood the entire ceremony on one knee, paying tribute. Come on, today there is a reason. Kakashi disappeared, following Lee. The ANBU, without saying a word, disappeared into thin air. I woke up in the center of a rather large crater in the middle of some clearing. The sun was just at its zenith. I didn't have time to really come to my senses, but I felt several pockets of chakra. The ANBU bearing was taking its toll on me. 400 meters to this brotherhood. What do we have? With the help of chakra, I began to probe every millimeter of my body and accumulate sen chakra. The body is much younger than mine. About 18 years old, a huge reserve of his own chakra, like any Uzumaki. Chakra control is not bad, but far from the previous level. In an ANBU with the kind I had in the war, I would have been kicked like a puppy. 200 meters. 6 fighters. They enter in a semicircle, apparently pushing towards the forest. There are no separate chakra channels to the eyes, which means I really lost my dojutsu. I don't observe the presence of Bijou, which means Kekia. I also lost Genkai, for example, Jiten, release of magnetism. By Shikaku or Yotan, release of lava. By Son Goku. I have lost the power of the Sage of the 6 Paths. It's good that at least my father's technique works. Yeah. Not much, I muttered to myself. I collected a lot of senchakra for Sannin-moto is enough, but I don't have a summoning contract, so I'll have to use it very carefully. Otherwise SDH. And why do I have the feeling that Hagoromo managed to give me a surprise here too? The crater was small, 10 to 15 meters in diameter. 6 Uchiha were already lined up along the perimeter, led by, I involuntarily drawled, looking at Madara, about 16 to 17 years old. I recognized this chakra from 1,000. The Sharingans looked at me with contempt. I quickly transferred chakra to the seals on my hands and was already ready with the reaction of a horned old man who can levitate. My storage seals were completely intact, which means that my father's kanai are with me and I can still fight. Who are you? He said with a characteristic chuckle. Uchiha? Better tell me, dear man, where I am, I answered. Laughter was heard from all sides. Answer the question. With what joy? I straightened up. Otherwise I will kill you. The Sharingan with 3 tomo lit up in his eyes. I exhaled noisily when I saw that the rest had only 1 tomo, although some had no Sharingan at all. I'd better get out of here, kid, I said, activating Sannin-moto, causing cracks to appear in the ground underfoot. CI pressure increased many times over. One Uchiha could not stand it and fell to his knee. I'm having a bad day today. 2 kunai-kid fell out of the seal, and I immediately threw them. One was near the one who knelt down, the second flew past the one standing next to him. Hiration, and I know Dan, I combined the technique with the Rasengan, like my father, and jumped to the first target. Then to the second. The 2 Uchiha were pinned to the ground. They are still alive, I said, rising above the one lying down and playing with kunai. Akio. Handsome. Japanese name, a female voice was heard. Goro. 5th son. Who are you? Madara began to boil. Guess, I said playfully. My parents are from different clans. So who am I? I smiled sarcastically. Mudblood. Half-breed. Was heard from all sides. In response to the insults, I made a simple gesture. I decapitated one of the speakers using the same method that I knocked out the rest. Will there still be people who want to insult me? Or to me, all of you? I poked at the crater. None of them cried, did not utter a word, they just began to release their CI on me. How do you know Tobirama's technique? Senju? Madara said in an even voice. Madara-san, let's just kill him already. Be silent. The Uchiha boss barked. I'm not going to answer you, I said, sealing the kunai. See you later, Madara. Come on, stand, the last thing I heard, disappearing into the forest at high speed. I quickly moved north. If I understood everything correctly, then about a couple of hours of this kind of running, and I will find myself in front of the sea, and then to Uzushio. Back in that world I found this village when I asked for a 2-week vacation. On the border, that is, where it was in my world, in which there was no need to talk about shinobi villages, I came across a small settlement, only 5 houses. This place was attacked by some gang of robbers. I would have passed by if not for a family of red-haired people who were going to be strung up on the nearest trees as an example for others. Sannin-moto was active, and I decided to help. A gang of 10 people, among whom there is not a single shinobi. That's business. About 30 of my clones began to actively use the replacement, which turned out to be a complete surprise to everyone, including the residents themselves. Switching places with logs, tables, chairs, stones in the courtyards or something else, the clones simply slaughtered 10 robbers, and then all disappeared at once. I walked out of the forest and waved to the residents. At first people shied away from me, but when I started untying and helping clean up the mess, they quickly came around. Thank you, young man. Thank you, you helped a lot. So be it for you, I said, untying the girl, when I felt that I was unable to move. Fuinjutsu binding came to my ears. People recognizing Shinobi Uzushio relaxed. Apparently these houses were under their protection or something. Behind me was a shinobi in a blue suit and black jounin armor. On his head there was a shock of scarlet hair sticking out in all directions. He put his hand with a seal on my head. What a brilliance! My thought flashed. Poof! The clone on whom this jonin had put a seal disappeared, and I had already put a kunai to his vertebra. If you twitch, you'll be frozen for the rest of your life. Am I clear? The shinobi shuddered. Well, fine. So why? Why did you decide that I would tell you something? Because at least I didn't deserve a stamp on the back of my head for saving that Uzumaki family over there. Where are you from? But he was interrupted. Another similar Uzumaki appeared in front of us, but in armor with a clan whirlpool. He was much older, looking about 30. He had long red hair and amber eyes. Enough, Aki. Autumn. Please release our shinobi. We won't fight, said the newcomer. My kunai disappeared into the seal, and I moved 2 meters away from the shinobi. Maybe you'll show yourself already? The shinobi in armor said again. Oh, finally someone started to think, and then get into a fight? I drawled, leaving the forest. And the clone that had previously held the jonin disappeared. Who are you? And why did you help these people? The man-at-arms said in a peaceful voice. I was supposed to watch an Uzumaki family with a 5-year-old child hang up for show. I arched an eyebrow. No, for this I must thank you on behalf of the residents of Uzushiogakure. He just nodded politely. And apologized for the stupidity of my subordinate. He shot at the jounin, who also bowed politely. Everything is okay. So maybe you could introduce yourself? Maybe. Uzumaki Naruto. I nodded lightly. Uzumaki? The jounin was taken aback. But your hair? Half-breed. The father is from another clan. I don't even know if it exists now. Where are you from? The man-at-arms raised his voice again. Already out of nowhere, I said sadly. The shinobi looked at each other. Local skirmishes, in which innocent people were often innocent, were not uncommon, and therefore such places were often left devastated. Where are you going? I don't know where to go, I'm just wandering. Well, I recently came across Uchiha. Funny guys. When I addressed this clan and generally mentioned it, the shinobi in armor grimaced. Inadvertently I turned my head off because she was chatting a lot. Is that so? And why should I believe you? Asked the man-at-arms. Yes, if only because there is no point in lying to me. I lost my loved ones due to the fault of the Uchiha. Well, and besides, because I'm stronger. I arched my eyebrow mockingly. We'll see. The jounin barked. What will you do? Will you set the other 2 who remained in the forest against me, setting traps around the perimeter and preparing a barrier? The armored man just shook his head. Yeah. You felt them, and even their tiny manipulations with chakra. Looks like I can't fool you. At least with us. The man-at-arms said bitterly. Maybe then you can introduce yourself? You already know my name, although you haven't introduced yourself. That's right. Uzumaki smiled. My name is Izamu. Brave warrior. Uzumaki. How would you like to go with us to Uzushio? We could use a strong shinobi. I'll look at it positively. Izamu made a gesture with his hand, and I felt the barrier immediately collapse, and 2 more characters appeared in front of us. After helping the residents, we set off. This Uzumaki group was supposed to escort the residents of the town closer to the village so that it would be more convenient to help them. I stayed in the middle in full view of the shinobi. Izamu asked about this. Chapter 2. Well, hello Uzushio. After 2 days of travel, during which there were 2 stops for the night, we approached the seashore, and an island to which there was no bridge became visible ahead. A settlement with a large port was located along the entire coast. The village is located half a kilometer from the coast under a powerful barrier. There is a trading town on the shore. Smart. Provide the village with everything necessary, in exchange for patronage and protection. And none of the robbers would dare to attack a city next to a shinobi village. Naruto, there is a barrier over the village. Only residents can get there. But so do those who have an Uzukage invitation. In your case, we'll have to put a stamp on you and escort you as a prisoner. Izamu said a little hesitantly. Go ahead. I didn't even tense up, but tried to enjoy the view. The shinobi who accompanied me were a little shocked by my behavior. I just took it and gave up. When the seal was placed, and we all went under the barrier in a crowd, then in front of us there was a bridge, and the village was not half a kilometer away, but much further, it could hardly be distinguished on the horizon. Protective illusory barrier, interesting. Naruto, where are you from? Aki began. He's an Uzumaki, and clearly not a stupid one. Ichiro, first son, said ambiguously. This guy was usually silent along the way, only sometimes inserting his 2 cents. But Ichiro recognized the barrier under the binding seal just by touching it. Illusory, that's understandable, everything is visible here, but how did he know about the protective properties? Izama said thoughtfully and stared at me. What? I asked incomprehensibly. It's just a guess. Hide the village in an illusion. Seriously? Is this despite the fact that the most skilled Fuinjutsu masters live here? Somehow a simple illusion will not be enough. You're so quick-witted. Banquo drawled playfully, literary child. Hee hee. That's how we moved across the bridge, which was a couple of kilometers long. In the village they only looked at me with interested glances. No malice, hatred, or the slightest hostility. This chakra! Kurama! Where? I felt a strong, oppressive chakra somewhere deep underground. Only its echoes, nothing more. But it's definitely her. The village was truly magnificent, even the cloud is much less beautiful. She literally blossomed. All buildings were in good condition. There were no painted walls or decorated fences. The houses are mostly 3-story, but there were also higher ones. Parks and public gardens. There was a lot of greenery in the village. Almost every private house had its own garden or at least a flower bed. The village, as I was told, was divided into several sectors. The shinobi sector, where there were dormitories and training grounds under special barriers. The civilian sector, where people lived who did not want to follow the shinobi path. Shopping area, as well as the central district, where the Kage's residence was located, and a huge square where holidays and festivals were held. I was taken to the residence, and then to the Uzukage. A vigorous man, about 40 years old, which is quite young by Uzumaki standards. There was not even a hint of gray on his scarlet hair. Emerald eyes sparkled in the sun. It was clear from his gaze that this old man had seen many battles, many wars. One could see strength, valor, honor, pride, courage. In general, he's such a solid Kage. Remove the seal. Izamu immediately followed the direct order. Izamu, stay. The rest of the shinobi immediately flew out of the office. Nobody wanted to anger the head. So introduce yourself, please. Uzumaki. Naruto, I said calmly. Where are you from? Kan. Ahem. I sighed heavily. Izamu quirked an eyebrow. Maybe I can explain everything to you individually? I asked. I didn't feel any anger or negative attitude toward myself. Okay, put a seal on Izamu and take him out, and then bring him in. You don't mind, do you? I just nodded. Uzukage and Izamu were left alone in the head's office. What can you say about him? Daichi, he is a very interesting person. And clearly not weak. He offered no resistance at all during the entire journey here. We came across him in the place whose inhabitants were supposed to be taken out. We were about to intervene when he appeared and began to kill the attacking bandits with amazing composure. In addition, Aki tried to put a binding seal on it, but there was only a shadow clone, as he called it. He initially knew that we were watching him. He sensed Banko and Ichiro that they remained as cover. He mentioned that he met an Uchiha on the way and beheaded one. Interesting specimen. What can you say about his chakra? You are, after all, a censor for us. Interesting structure. His chakra is practically no different from, how to put it more correctly, from the surrounding world. He doesn't hide it, it just blends in with the environment. Senjutsu, the old man said thoughtfully. Sorry, what? No, Izamu, continue. Is there anything else? Nothing else. Okay, bring him and leave us. Okay, Daichi. The armored man bowed. I was again shown into the office and asked to sit down. and the shinobi left, as ordered. So, Naruto, you wanted to talk in person. Do you mind if I put another stamp on you? Nothing serious, it will just react to nervous vibrations in the brain. Equivalent to truth serum. Well, put it on. Great. I told the old man about my life, told how I was connected with the Uchihas, why I went to Uzushio. I left out some details. At the end of my 3-hour monologue, the old man was ready to chew valerian. I didn't say anything about my connection with the bijou and some unflattering things. Well, when I summed up the results of the war and my life, the old man was in a certain state of prostration, which made me want to punch him so that he would wake up. Naruto, would you like to become a shinobi of our village? The seal on the head never blinked, and it cannot be deceived. We could use a shinobi who survived such a war. I guess I have nowhere to go anyway. Just please don't reveal me. Then let's go to the training ground. We need to see what you're good for, because you yourself said that you have lost a significant part of your strength. By the way, do you have paper for determining the elements? For what? I have a bad feeling about this. The old man looked at me uncomprehendingly. Then he nodded and began to rummage in the table, and then brought out into the light of God a box with the symbol of the 5 elements. He handed me 1 leaf. 5. What? Give me 5 pieces of paper. The old man was in tears again, but handed them to me. I laid out all 5 in front of me and placed 1 finger on each. Naruto, what are you? He didn't have time to finish, because I simultaneously applied chakra to all the leaves. What a joker! I cursed, remembering Rikudo. I knew this old guy would do something. Somewhere, no one knows where, Rikudo sneezed very hard. Sorry, I couldn't resist. What is this? Daichi mumbled. Apparently, it was a prank of one of my friends. I picked up the middle leaf, which I hit with a click. Pow you! A light sound of metal sounded. 2 of the 5 leaves were cut in half, 2 more rotted, which indicated the presence of Doton, and the last leaf turned from paper into steel. This, as I understand it, is my Kekkei Genkai, Koton. Release of steel. Ahem. The old man coughed loudly when he got over his surprise, thereby taking me out of the world of rainbows, elephants, and gentle ponies, from Hagoromo's antics. Let's go to the training ground. Maybe you can at least remove the seals, or, if they carry me away, I won't mind either. Yes, sorry, Naruto. The old man smiled and removed the binding seal, as well as the seal on his head. And after old man Daichi gave some orders to Izamu, we began to move towards the training ground. In the clearing where they brought me, there was almost a crowd of people. Old man Daichi, a crowd of jonin and several men-at-arms. Standing next to Uzukage were 2 people around his age. There was also a pretty girl, about 16 to 17 years old, with 2 buns on her head. The hairstyle reminded me of Tenten, and her scarlet hair and smile when she saw her father Daichi reminded me of my mother, who smiled the same way. Sweet features, black as the night itself, eyes that glanced at me inquisitively. Thin, neatly painted lips and upturned nose. And such a charming smile, so kind and bright. She was in standard shinobi uniform Uzushiogakure. She was wearing standard black shinobi pants and a matching turtleneck. Regular shinobi sandals, as well as bandages. Her chest was covered with a thick, good quality vest, exactly the right size. Completing her look was the Uzumaki medallion around her neck, which was made of deep red opal. When I smiled back at her, she snorted demonstrably, and I caught Daichi's malicious glance. He smiled somehow slyly. Not just, daughter, this is a great opportunity to test your abilities. Don't call me that. Well, Mitochka. Father. She looked witheringly. Mitochka? Stop! This is Mito Uzumaki, the first Jinchuriki Karama. Then I simply didn't listen to them. This family verbal squabble lasted for a long time. Daichi tried to prove, foaming at the mouth, that I could test her strength. And Mito, stamping her feet, shouted that she did not want to see me as an opponent. Izamu, who was standing behind Daichi, rolled his eyes tiredly and pointed a finger at me. Only then did Daichi turn his gaze to me. What about me? Reclining under a tree in the shade in his standard shinobi costume Konoha without any symbols. Only there was no vest. Deciding to teach me a lesson, Mito began to carefully fold the seals. Most of those present just quietly laughed at my behavior. Suetun Daihoden, the girl said quietly, and a large projectile of water flew at me, dousing me from head to toe. The clone under the tree was scattered by the impact of the water technology. Doton Shinjuzanshu no Jutsu. My hand suddenly came out of the ground and, grabbing Mito by the ankle, pulled her underground up to her neck. I knew many elemental jutsu when I was a bearer of the Rinnegan, but now I was simply replaying in my memory techniques that had been practiced until they were automatic for 10 years. Mito didn't really have time to figure out what had happened, but she caught it quickly enough. The rest hurried to vacate the site. The red-haired girl passed chakra throughout her body and climbed out of the ground. I used a weak technique. It is generally designed for genin, and then a jounin got caught. Mito started looking around and trying to feel me. I was sitting on a branch right above her in Senin Moto. Only Izama sensed me. Daichi and his 2 companions who were nearby were able to detect me much later. You have to be a very good sensor to find a person who is hiding their chakra and using Seninku. My clone, armed with an ordinary kunai, entered the clearing, and another one appeared on the other side of the training ground. This confused everyone, because Shadow Clone is a technique that Tobirama developed. They didn't know about it yet, although any Uzumaki, even a hand-ass, can make an elemental clone shinobi. Kai! Said Mito, concentrating her chakra. Many did this, but only quietly. The illusion did not sleep, which means it was not a genjutsu. What the hell is this? A simple and favorite technique that I possess, said the clone on the left. Attack already, huh? Said the right clone. Mito was confused. She didn't know which one was real. She had no sensory abilities, or rather they were weak. Red-haired became fold seal with enviable speed. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu. Mito released an impressive stream of water from her mouth, which formed into a 2-headed dragon, and then each of the heads rushed towards its clone. 2 pops were heard. My clones didn't even think about leaving from the attack. They set themselves up on purpose. 2 clouds of smoke dissipated. A second later, 4 clones appeared on the training ground opposite Mito. Mito began to boil. Katan, Hosenka no Jutsu, Phoenix Flowers fireballs began to fire at the clones, who were openly exposed to attacks. 2 elements and quite strong techniques. Interesting. 16 clones appeared in the clearing. I brazenly lounged on a tree, and my right leg dangled carelessly somewhere below. Kai! Mito tried to remove the genjutsu again. Yes, as much as possible. This is some kind of nonsense. She grabbed the katana from the seal on her wrist and rushed at the clones. Close combat was forced, and Mito, who had very good command of kenjutsu, successfully parried and deflected the clones' blows, redirecting them at each other. Soon there was nothing left of the 16 clones, but Mito still swayed a little. She spent a lot of chakra on techniques, and now also on dispersing chakra throughout her body, but even this did not save her from several blows. I made a seal. Well, we started with 1 clone, then there were 2, 4, 16. What is the next level? Everyone, like Mito, felt such a strong surge of chakra. They simultaneously looked at the place where the girl stood from the very beginning. Finally! Mito was about to rush at me, smiling bloodthirstily. You have more serious problems now. I nodded to her. The girl turned around and was stunned. Crowds of clones began to pour out onto the training ground. They were everywhere, in the trees, on the ground. Some did not have enough space, so they walked a little forward. I felt the other shinobi tense up. That's right, now they realized that they had dragged a person with such techniques into the village. Here it was possible to arrange a massacre. Mito fell on her butt. The shinobi took up the orge. No, he didn't lie to me, he won't harm me. We must try to settle everything peacefully. A thought flashed through Uzukage's head. Stop the fight! At my command, 256 clones disappeared, leaving behind a huge cloud of smoke. I'm not tired, actually. The clones didn't do anything. The chakra that I spent on their creation returned to me. Mito, you did a good job. Naruto! What kind of techniques are these? Uzukage raged. He was already next to his daughter. He calmed down a little, and I did not attack them en masse. It was designed by Tobarama Senju. I spied her. The people frowned. The technique is not weak if there is so much chakra. It has both pros and cons. Father? Mito raised her voice. Who is he? Why is he in the village? I invited this man to become a shinobi of our village. The elders and Izama jumped up to him. They began to vigorously discuss something. The crowd of jounins began to whisper. This went on for some time. After which the Uzukage assigned me to a dormitory under the supervision of 4 jounins. For 3 months I was obliged to stay in the village and nothing at all. Only after this period and the corresponding loyalty mission will I be able to receive the title and protector. Mito was apparently very offended by me. She pointedly turned away from me and did not greet me. Only when they brought me to Daichi, and she was there, did she answer me with a short nod, maintaining a calm expression on her face. And then on one of these days I felt Karama inside Mito. How could I not think that they would simply be wary of me and as a countermeasure they could put forward Jinchuriki? Damn you all! She'll hate me.